The airlock hissed open, and Queen Helena stepped into a hall that smelled of ozone and something sharper, like burnt metal. Captain Derek Hayes followed close behind, his hand resting near his sidearm, though he knew it would be useless here. The Valdren flagship stretched around them in angles too severe for human architecture, all black glass and edges that caught the cold light like knives. Somewhere in the distance, machinery hummed with a rhythm that felt wrong, as if the ship itself were breathing. Helena kept her expression calm, but her pulse hammered against her throat. 3 months of war had brought Earth to its knees. Valdren warships had torn through the outer colonies like paper, and every attempt at communication had been met with silence or slaughter. Then, inexplicably, Princess Xariva had sent a single message: "Come alone, or watch your worlds burn." So here they stood, 2 humans in a steel trap, surrounded by aliens who had never once shown mercy. The escort didn't speak. The Valdren soldiers were tall, nearly 7 feet, their skin a deep violet that shimmered under the lights. They wore no armor, only tight black uniforms that made them look like shadows given form. Their faces were angular, beautiful, in a cold way, with eyes that glowed faint gold. They moved in perfect silence, and Derek noticed none of them ever touched, not even accidentally. They kept distance between each other, as if contact were poison. The throne room doors opened without sound. Helena's breath caught. The chamber was vast, circular, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. In the center, on a throne of black stone, sat Princess Xariva. She was stunning and terrifying in equal measure. Her violet skin seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and her eyes burned gold like twin suns. She wore a gown of dark metal that flowed like liquid, and her hair fell in silver waves past her shoulders. But it was her expression that made Helena's stomach turn. There was no curiosity there, no interest, only cold calculation. Queen Helena of Earth. Xariva's voice was smooth, almost musical, but it carried an edge that could cut. "How brave of you to come, or how desperate." Helena stepped forward, forcing her voice steady. "We came to negotiate peace, Princess Xariva. Our people don't have to be enemies." Xariva laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your people are insects. You build with dirt and hope, and you cling to each other like frightened children. We have watched you for generations, and we have seen nothing that impresses us." She leaned forward, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You are here because I allow it. You breathe because I permit it, and if you cannot prove yourselves worthy, you will die here, and your Earth will follow." Derek's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Helena had prepared for hostility, but this was worse. This wasn't negotiation. This was the execution waiting to happen. "What do you want from us?" Helena asked, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Xariva stood, and the movement was liquid grace. "I want to see if there is even one among you with true courage, one who can face death without flinching, one who can prove that humanity is more than the weak, fragile things we believe you to be." She descended the steps slowly, her eyes locked on Helena. "If you can show me this, perhaps I will reconsider. If you cannot, you will die here, and I will finish what we started." Helena's mind raced. This was a test, but what kind? The Valdren were known for their brutality, their cold logic. They didn't value sentiment or emotion. They valued strength, dominance, control. "What must we do?" Helena asked. Xariva smiled, and it was the most frightening thing Helena had ever seen. "One of you will approach me. You will perform an act of courage beyond reason, something no Valdren would dare. If you succeed, I will listen. If you fail, or if you refuse, you will be executed, and your fleet will be destroyed before the day ends." Derek stepped forward before Helena could speak. "I'll do it." Xariva's gaze shifted to him, and for the first time something like interest flickered in her eyes. A soldier. How predictable. She tilted her head, studying him like a specimen. "Very well. Approach me, human. Show me this courage you claim to possess." Derek moved slowly, every instinct screaming at him to run. The Valdren soldiers around the room tensed, their hands drifting toward weapons. Xariva remained still, watching him with those burning gold eyes. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see the faint patterns in her violet skin, close enough to smell something like frost and electricity. "What now?" he asked, his voice low. Xariva's smile widened. "Now you prove you are not a coward. In our culture, there is one act that signifies ultimate weakness, ultimate vulnerability. It is forbidden, punishable by death. If you can perform this act and survive, I will know you possess true courage." Derek's mind raced. What could be so forbidden? Violence? No, the Valdren thrived on violence. Submission? That didn't fit either. Then it hit him, the way the soldiers never touched. The way Xariva stood alone on her throne. The way every Valdren kept distance, as if proximity were a threat. They feared connection. They feared intimacy. He met Xariva's eyes and saw the challenge there, the certainty that he would fail. And in that moment, Derek made a choice that would change everything. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and kissed her. The room exploded into chaos. Soldiers shouted, weapons charged, but Derek didn't pull away. Xariva froze, her body rigid, her eyes wide with shock for 3 seconds, maybe 4. The universe held its breath. Then Derek stepped back, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. Xariva stared at him, her expression shattered. Her hand lifted slowly to her lips, trembling. Around them, the soldiers had weapons raised, waiting for her command to fire. But Xariva didn't speak. She just stood there, staring at Derek as if seeing him for the first time. "Get out," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then louder, almost a shout, "Everyone out!" Now, the soldiers hesitated, but Xariva's glare sent them scrambling. Within seconds, the throne room was empty except for Xariva, Derek, and Helena. The door sealed shut with a heavy clang. Xariva turned away, her shoulders shaking. "What have you done?" Her voice cracked, something Helena wouldn't have thought possible. "What have you done to me?" Derek didn't move. "I showed you courage, just like you asked." Xariva spun around, and there were tears on her face glowing faintly gold. "You touched me. No one has ever—" She stopped, her breath hitching. "We are taught from birth that touch is weakness, that to allow another being close is to invite destruction. We are raised in isolation, alone, always alone. And you," her voice broke again, "you just destroyed everything I thought I knew." Helena stepped forward carefully. "Your Highness, we didn't mean to—" "Didn't mean to what?" Xariva's laugh was bitter, broken. "Didn't mean to show me that my entire life has been a lie? That my people have been trapped in fear for so long we've forgotten what it means to feel anything?" She looked at Derek, her golden eyes searching his face. "How do you do it? How do you humans live so close to each other, touch each other, love each other, and not fall apart?" Derek's voice was gentle. "Because that's what makes us strong. Not isolation. Connection. We're stronger together than we could ever be alone." Xariva shook her head slowly. "I have killed thousands. I have watched planets burn. I have done everything my father commanded because I believed we were superior. That emotions were weakness. That mercy was failure." She looked down at her hands. "But just now, when you kissed me, I felt something I've never felt before. And I don't even have a word for it." "Hope," Helena said quietly. "You felt hope." Before Xariva could respond, the doors burst open. A massive Valdren strode in, his armor gleaming black, his eyes burning with rage. Emperor Karvoth, Xariva's father, and the architect of Earth's suffering. "What is the meaning of this?" His voice boomed through the chamber. "My soldiers tell me a human dared to touch you and you let him live?" Xariva straightened, wiping her tears away. "Father, Silence!" Karvoth's hand shot out, pointing at Derek. "This creature has contaminated you. He must die. Immediately." 2 guards moved toward Derek, but Xariva stepped between them. "No." The room went deathly quiet. Karvoth stared at his daughter as if she'd grown a second head. "What did you say?" "I said no." Xariva's voice was steady now, filled with something new. Conviction. "He showed me courage. Real courage. Not the mindless violence we call strength. Not the isolation we call discipline. He showed me what we've lost. Karvoth's face twisted with fury. You dare defy me? Your Empress-to-be, raised to lead our people to glory, and you defend this weak, pathetic human? Yes. Xariva moved closer to Derek, her body shielding his. Because he's braver than any of us. He risked death to show me something we've forgotten. And I won't let you kill him for it. Karvoth's hand went to his weapon. Then you will die with him. Guards, execute them all. But the guards hesitated. Derek saw it in their eyes. The uncertainty, the doubt. How many of them had questioned this life of isolation? How many had wondered if there was another way? One guard lowered her weapon, then another. Within seconds, half the room had stood down. Karvoth's rage turned to shock. Traitors! You would betray your emperor for this? The female guard who had lowered her weapon first stepped forward. Her name tag read Solara. We would follow Princess Xariva. She has shown us something we never believed possible. She looked at Xariva with something like reverence. She has shown us a different path. Karvoth drew his weapon, a blade that hummed with energy. Then you will all burn. He lunged at Derek, but Xariva was faster. She caught her father's wrist, twisting it with brutal efficiency. The blade clattered to the floor. For a moment, father and daughter stood locked together, and Derek saw generations of pain in that moment, cycles of cruelty and loneliness stretching back centuries. It ends here, Xariva said quietly. The old ways end with you, Karvoth snarled, breaking free and stumbling back. You think you can change thousands of years of tradition with one act of weakness? It's not weakness. Xariva's voice rang through the chamber. It's strength. The strength to feel. The strength to connect. The strength to choose something different than fear. More guards shifted, moving to stand behind Xariva. Even some of Karvoth's personal guard looked uncertain. The Emperor saw his power crumbling and made his final play. He activated a comm device on his wrist. All loyal forces, this is Emperor Karvoth. The princess has been compromised by the humans. Eliminate all resistance and secure the throne room. Alarms blared. The ship shuddered as weapon systems came online. Derek grabbed Helena, pulling her behind a pillar as energy blasts tore through the chamber. Xariva moved like water, dodging and striking with precision that took Derek's breath away. Solara and the rebel guards formed a protective circle, returning fire against loyalists pouring through the doors. The battle was chaos. Derek had his sidearm out, taking careful shots at Karvoth's forces. Helena fought beside him, her own weapon barking in the close quarters. But it was Xariva who turned the tide. She fought her way to the throne, activated a control panel hidden in the armrest, and her voice boomed through the ship's speakers. All Valdren forces, this is Princess Xariva. Emperor Karvoth has led us down a path of isolation and cruelty for too long. I challenge his rule. Stand with me, and we will build something new. Stand with him, and you choose extinction. For 5 heartbeats, nothing changed. Then weapons lowered throughout the ship. Derek could hear it through the open doors. Soldiers arguing, commanders shouting conflicting orders. The Valdren Empire was tearing itself apart. Karvoth screamed in rage and charged Xariva directly. She met him head-on, their combat a blur of motion too fast for Derek to follow. They crashed through pillars, shattered displays, their fight carrying them across the chamber. Finally, Xariva caught her father's arm mid-strike, twisted, and threw him to the ground. She stood over him, breathing hard, her eyes blazing. "Yield," she commanded. Karvoth laughed, blood on his lips. "Never. Better to die than live in your weak new world. Then die knowing you failed." Xariva raised her weapon, but Derek called out, "Don't!" She looked at him, surprise flickering across her face. "He deserves death." "Maybe," Derek said, stepping forward despite the danger. "But you deserve better than to start your reign with patricide. Show them mercy. Show them the new way begins now." Xariva stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she lowered her weapon. "You will be imprisoned for the rest of your life," she told Karvoth. "And you will watch as everything you built transforms into something you never thought possible." Guards loyal to Xariva dragged the former emperor away. The fighting throughout the ship ceased as word spread that the coup had succeeded. Xariva stood in the center of her shattered throne room, surrounded by rebels and reformers, and for the first time in her life she smiled without cruelty. She walked to Derek, ignoring the shocked gasps from her people, and took his hand. The simple contact sent murmurs through the watching Valdren, but no one moved to stop her. "You have given me something I never thought I could have," she said softly. "A future worth living for." Derek squeezed her hand gently. "We all deserve that." Helena approached, her expression careful but hopeful. "Princess Xariva, Empress," Sylara corrected quietly. "Empress Xariva now." Xariva nodded slowly, as if testing the weight of the title. "Empress Xariva. And I have much to learn about leading differently than my father." She looked at Helena. "Will you help us? Will you show us how to build bridges instead of weapons?" Helena smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. "We would be honored." The days that followed were turbulent. Not all Valdren accepted the change. Pockets of resistance formed throughout the Empire. Loyalists who clung to the old ways. But Xariva was ruthless in her reforms, dismantling the systems of isolation one by one. She opened channels of communication with Earth, established cultural exchange programs, and, most shockingly, she abolished the prohibition on physical contact. The change wasn't easy. Many Valdrens struggled with the concept of touch, of closeness. But, slowly, tentatively, they began to reach out to each other. Sylara became Xariva's chief advisor, and together they rebuilt the Empire's foundations on cooperation rather than domination. Derek stayed aboard the flagship as a liaison, working with both human and Valdren forces to establish protocols for the new alliance. And every evening, he and Xariva would stand at the observation deck, watching the stars together. "Do you regret it?" Xariva asked one night, her hand in his. "That kiss changed everything. Started a war within my own people." Derek shook his head. "Change was always going to come. We just gave it a spark." She leaned against him, a gesture that still drew stares from passing Valdren soldiers, but fewer than before. "My people are learning, slowly. Some will never accept it. But I see them trying, and that's enough." "What about you?" Derek asked. "What do you want?" Xariva was quiet for a long moment. "I want what you showed me. Connection. Purpose beyond conquest. A reason to wake up that isn't about domination or fear." She turned to face him, her golden eyes soft in the starlight. "I want to build something beautiful with you, with all of you, humans and Valdren together." Derek smiled. "Then, that's what we'll do." She kissed him then, soft and tentative, still learning this new language of intimacy. And across the ship, across the Empire, across the vast distance between Earth and the Valdren homeworld, two civilizations took their first real steps toward each other. 6 months later, the formal alliance was signed aboard a neutral station. Queen Helena and Empress Xariva stood side by side, human and Valdren delegates behind them, as they enacted treaties that would reshape the galaxy. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, cultural exchanges that would see humans learning Valdren technology, but the moment that would be remembered forever came at the end of the ceremony. Xariva took Derek's hand in front of representatives from a dozen worlds, and she spoke clearly. "6 months ago, this man showed me that courage isn't about violence or isolation. It's about vulnerability. It's about choosing connection over fear. He changed my world with one brave act, and together, we will change the galaxy." She kissed him again, and this time, the Valdren delegates didn't gasp or whisper. They applauded, because they understood now. They had learned. Helena watched from nearby, tears in her eyes, as the woman who had once threatened to destroy Earth instead became its greatest ally. And she thought about how close they had come to annihilation, how one moment of desperate courage had rewritten the future. As the ceremony ended and delegates mingled, Helena approached Xariva. "Thank you," she said simply, "for choosing differently." Xariva smiled, and it was warm, genuine, nothing like the cold expression she had worn when they first met. "Thank you for showing us there was another choice." She glanced at Derek, who was talking with Sylara about joint military exercises. "And thank you for bringing him. He saved us all." Helena laughed softly. I think you saved each other." Later, as the station's lights dimmed and the delegates retired, Derek and Xariva stood at another observation window, watching ships from both their worlds dock side by side, crews mingling freely now where months ago they would have been shooting. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't kissed me?" Xariva asked. Derek considered it. "We'd probably all be dead. Or still fighting." "No," Xariva said softly. "I would have killed you. And then I would have destroyed your world, and I would have died, never knowing there was anything more than the cold, empty existence I was raised in." She turned to him, taking both his hands. "You gave me life, Derek. Real life. And I will spend every day making sure your courage wasn't wasted." He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, still learning to accept comfort, still learning to give it. Around them, the galaxy turned, full of possibilities that hadn't existed before one human decided that connection was worth risking everything. And in the throne room of the Valdren flagship, now repurposed as a council chamber for the Alliance, a new symbol hung where Karvoth's banner once did, two hands clasped together. One human, one Valdren, holding tight, a reminder that the strongest bonds are forged, not in isolation, but in the brave choice to reach out, to touch, to trust. One kiss had started a revolution, and the revolution had only just begun.